done so far. The meaning of the temple has changed from a building to the person of Jesus. Now that's the first transformation. But you know, if you were in John's community, that wouldn't really be good news. If the only transformation is from a building to the person of Jesus, you would be in the same position as the Jewish people who have just lost their building. The temple, it's gone. It's been destroyed in 70. And for the Johannine community and the early Christians, they no longer have the physical presence of Jesus. So transforming the image of the temple from a building to the person of Jesus isn't enough. And so we'll see how this gospel, in fact, transforms that meaning even further. And I hope you can understand that point. To just transform the meaning of temple to the person of Jesus isn't good enough. It still leaves a Christian community bereft because the physical Jesus is no longer present. If you have a look now at John chapter 7, verses 37 to 39. In this chapter, first of all, we're actually at the Festival of Tabernacles. Well, Tabernacles features one ritual involved with water. Every morning the people would gather in the temple and they would walk down to the pool of Siloam and collect a great golden flask of water and carry that up to the temple, joyful psalms, singing, waving leafy branches, and pour that water on the altar. That symbolism of water is picked up by Jesus in this festival. Chapter 7, verse 37 says this: "If anyone thirsts, let them come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as Scripture has said, out of his heart shall flow fountains of living water." Now, he said this about the Spirit, which believers in him were to receive. For as yet the Spirit had not been given, because Jesus was not yet glorified. A couple of things about the text, first of all. In the Greek manuscripts, there are two different manuscript traditions. The only difference is a full stop. Only difference is where you put the full stop. Some manuscript traditions read like this, as I've got it here, indicating that it's out of the heart of the believer that rivers of living water flow. Other manuscript traditions could read out of the heart of Jesus. So both traditions are possible. Biblical scholars are evenly divided. We just don't know. So here, the question is, when it says out of his, whose heart are we talking about? Is it the heart of Jesus or is it the heart of the believer? Both are possible, and the manuscript tradition itself is unclear. Okay? And scholars are divided. My reading is this: while Jesus is physically present, he is a source of living water. You might recall in John 4, you get that beautiful meeting between Jesus and the Samaritan woman, where he promises her living water. Okay, so while he's physically present, he is a source of living water. But this text looks to a future time, a time when the Spirit comes, a time when Jesus has been glorified. And it's at that point that believers will become rivers of living water. So I read this text as an indicator that the Gospel's going to show a second transformation of the meaning of temple. The person of Jesus to the believer. Now you might be asking, what's this living water all about, or what's it got to do with temple? Okay. Ezekiel 47 is a major text, and it seems that Ezekiel 47 was used in Jewish literature related to the Festival of Tabernacles. So there's a link between this festival and the Festival of Tabernacles. So this is what it says. Then he brought me back to the entrance of the temple, and there was water flowing from below the threshold. Going on eastward with the cord in his hand, the man measured 1,000 cubits and led me through the water. It was ankle deep. Again he measured 1,000, and it was a river that I couldn't cross. He led me back along the bank of the river, and I saw on either side a great many trees, one side and the other. And he said, the water flows towards the eastern region and goes down into the Arabah. And when it enters the sea of stagnant waters, when it reaches that sea, the water will become fresh. Wherever the river flows, every living creature that swarms will live. There'll be very many fish once these waters reach there. It will become fresh and everything will live. On the banks of both sides of the river, there'll grow all kinds of trees for food. Their leaves will not wither, their fruit will not fail. They'll bear fresh fruit each month, because the water flows from the sanctuary. Their fruit will be for food, their leaves for healing. Now this imagery Ezekiel is using goes back to the Jewish thinking that the temple was the navel of the earth, that the temple is the meeting point between heaven and earth, the source of all the waters that flow from God. That symbolism Christians transferred, of course, to the Holy Sepulchre. So that's the symbolism. Because the temple is this place, this is the place of all the waters of creation. Now that's in Jewish theology. But because Jesus now is the temple, that theology of the temple as a source of living water, he applies to himself. So when he says this phrase, out of his heart shall flow fountains of living water, at the time of Jesus, he's speaking of himself, a source of living water. And since this phrase looks to the future when the Spirit comes, I see that this phrase refers to another transformation from Jesus to the believers. That there'll be a time in the future, through the Spirit, that believers too will be temple people. Believers also will be sources of living water. Here in chapter 7, it's only a promise that this transformation will happen. And the rest of the narrative will show how it's going to happen. So we've gone through two transformations. The temple is a building to the person of Jesus, and here a promise that in the future, believers also will be temple